Welcome to Book Huddle. I'm your host, Karen Reader with Readgab. Today we have author Wendy Parris. She writes spooky middle grade, and I've talked about lately that I found such a happy place in spooky middle grade, and summer's coming up, so I thought, Wendy, we've got to have you on to talk spooky. But
Yay.
before we get started, I would love to hear, we're going to do an author icebreaker, and
Okay.
it's based on a book. So we're going to do James and the Giant Peach, and he befriends all these big giant insects. So if you got to choose a giant insect to become friends with and hang out with, who would your giant insect friend be?
Okay. I chose a butterfly with the caveat that it would be giant to me because I would be small.
Okay, okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would be really small and be able to get on the back of a
Oh, that
butterfly
would be
and
fun.
fly. Because I really want to go down to Mexico where all the butterflies go. They migrate. Have you
Yeah.
heard of this place? There's a
Yes.
beautiful
I,
forest
I
somewhere.
haven't heard of it, but I wonder if that's what Solimar is based on. Have you read Solimar by Pamela
No,
Adrian? That's really great.
no.
And it talks about, these butterfly migrations and
Yes. Well, there's a real place in Mexico where the monarchs go,
mm,
and they travel thousands and thousands of miles. And I would just love to be on the
mm.
back of a monarch and go, all the way
Be a
from,
part
I'm
of
in
the
the
migration.
Chicago area,
Yeah.
all the way down and spend the winter in Mexico, surrounded by other monarchs. Would
By
that be great?
butterflies. Ooh, wouldn't that be so cool? And just be
Beautiful.
seeing it all, just so many of them all at once. That would
Yes.
be
Yes.
amazing. I love that. That's great.
Okay.
So Wendy, tell us three things about you, something besides that you're an author.
Okay. Well, I used to act professionally. And in fact, some of that comes into my book, Stage
Yes.
Fright. One summer when I was in college, I did summer stock on the Ohio River on a showboat, the showboat Becky Thatcher. So
Cool.
that was really fun. We
Yeah,
did like vaudeville kind of stuff and musicals and jokes, and it was really fun. I've also been an extra in some movies,
that's fun.
and I studied film. So I've always liked to tell stories, let me put it that way, whether it was through acting or filmmaking and now writing novels. So I'm a storyteller.
That is so cool. So you have two middle grade spooky stories out. And
Yes.
how did you decide it was going to be spooky?
Well, when I was a middle grade reader, I loved ghost stories and I loved mysteries, Nancy Drew, all of that.
That was my favorite. That's what got me into reading.
Totally. And fun story, my first book, I did these other things. I went to college, I studied film, I acted a little, I did public relations to make a living. And then when my kids were in middle school, I went to visit some relatives in Iowa,
Okay.
and they live on a lake,
Hmm.
and I took a bike ride and I went down this lonely country road and I saw an abandoned farmhouse, which is, I don't know if you don't live in the Midwest, but there are abandoned farmhouses around the
Right.
Midwest. You could go to my website actually, and I have pictures from
Oh,
that
cool.
actual
Awesome.
farmhouse,
Awesome.
just wendyparis.com. But I got off my bike and I took all these pictures of this abandoned place. I did not go inside. Don't go inside, kids. Abandoned places. But I couldn't get it out of my head. And so I thought, you know what? I think I wanted to know, what happened here? Why did the people leave?
Right.
Is there a ghost? Because it sure looks spooky,
Right.
broken windows and crumbling paint and everything else.
Yes.
So I thought I'm going to write a ghost story about this place. And I'm going to write it for middle grade readers because that's when I really was in love with reading and when I fell in love with books. So,
And you're writing, I haven't read Fill the Screams, but
oh,
I
okay.
love the play on words for both of them. Fill the Screams and
Yeah.
Stage Fright. The titles are just so excellent. They're perfect that you know that you're going to get something a little spooky when you see the cover.
Yeah.
But I found such a happy place in spooky middle grade because years and years ago when The Ring came out, I
Yes.
was terrified of The Ring.
Oh,
I used to be able to pick and choose my scary. I could be
yeah.
like, yeah, this is okay. I could be scared. I like to be scared by movies and books. And then I discovered that this just terrified me for weeks, weeks and weeks. And
Yeah.
so I was like, never again. I wouldn't watch scary movies for years. Like even just when Stranger Things came out. my husband
Oh,
would try to
yeah.
get me to watch it, and I'd be like, what if I get scared? And so there was just, I would not go there. But now that I've like been like, okay, I can handle middle grade spooky
Yes.
because it's the perfect amount. I can be scared. And stage fright, it did get me that I was like, ooh, like I would have to read, in a lit room, and I had
Yay.
like it was enough that I was
Uh-huh.
scared, but it didn't
Hmm.
ruin my life for weeks. And
Yes.
so it's just this perfect place for me, even as an adult, even if I didn't do what I do with this podcast and everything, it's this perfect amount of spooky.
Yeah. I think for kids too, and just like you experienced, film is so visual and you're so immersed in it. And, if you're sitting on the couch with your friends or if you're in a movie theater with your friends, if you get scared, you're not going to get up and leave, right?
Right?
But with a book, you can just put it down.
Yes. Until you're ready for some more.
Yes, or go out in the backyard in the bright sunshine and read it or something like that.
Yes.
So
Change
you're
the
not so scared.
setting.
So I do like spooky middle grade for that reason too. I just love spooky books, so because if you get too scared, you could put them away.
Yes, right? And you get to choose what you're seeing in your head. You get to
Hmm.
choose how you're interpreting it. And so
Yes,
it's almost like you get to choose how scary you let it become.
that's true.
Because on
Very
a
true.
film, you don't really get to choose that as much.
No,
You can kind of skip a paragraph or two if you need to,
exactly.
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So why do you think people like to be scared? Why is there a demand for this?
Well, there's a lot of talk about that in the middle grade circles. And
Right?
I think that a lot of it is as kids are growing and learning about the world, they learn about some scary things, right? They get freaked out by things. Reading a scary book and identifying with a main character who's your age and seeing them be brave or not so brave, but still face something
Okay. Yeah.
and triumph, right?
Right.
Most of the time, I can't think of a horror
Middle
story
grade.
with
Yeah.
in middle grade that has a really sad ending
Right.
necessarily. So it gives kids kind of an outlet to experience emotions, but they're safe, even though they're identifying with the main character going through whatever horror they're going through. So I think kids like to explore that.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. All right. Give us an elevator pitch. Tell us, what is stage fright about?
Okay, Stage Fright is about a 13-year-old girl named Avery who is, again, 13, but when she was 12, the year before, she moved two, three, 4 states away from her home that she had been there all her life. And she had some best friends on the block, Tyler, Jalen, and Paige. And they had been together since preschool and they'd done all sorts of amazing things growing up. And their summers, they just ran around the block and had a blast, right?
Right.
Avery has moved away to a big city. She has not made a lot of friends yet. She's very upset about change. She's very upset about moving away. She comes back to visit her friends and is so excited to
Right.
be back in town. And
Pick
they're
up
going to do
right where
all,
we left off.
yeah, and they're going to do all the fun, silly neighborhood games they did when they were kids. Well, she gets there and everybody's 13, almost 14, and they're kind of like, we don't want to play those baby games anymore. And Avery is shook,
Right.
she's like, oh no, they've kind of, I'm the one who moved, but they moved on without me, kind of. So, to try to be cool and to get back into their good graces, she suggests, okay, let's break into this haunted abandoned theater and try to have a seance and see if we can get in touch with the ghost. And her friends are immediately like, cool,
This
yes,
is it.
you're on. And
Right.
she's like, oh, why did I say that? And she's kind of
I don't
stuck.
want to do this.
Exactly. But they go, and of course, they get trapped inside theater. So, with the
With the
ghosts. And
supernatural. Yes. Oh,
yes.
so
Mhm.
yes. And it was so funny. It was Halloween time when I read it, and I was out getting ice cream, and I turn around and there's just a skull because it's Halloween and there's decoration skulls. And I was just like, "Ugh, don't
Yeah.
touch it. Oh, because of this book.
Yes.
And so just little things like that would stick with you. And it's just so, I don't know, just the right amount of just
Oh,
spooky. And your book has so much that I didn't see coming, right? Because a
Good.
lot of times you can see it coming and it's fun to predict and be right.
Sure.
But yes, it's just was like, oh wow, wow. So let's talk
Right?
more about fears
Yeah.
and middle schoolers and fears.
Yes.
Do you think that people should approach their fears and face fears? Do you think it's important to face fears?
Absolutely.
Okay. Why?
Yeah. Um, because if you don't face your fears, you'll never get over them.
Okay.
If you do face your fears and you know, it can face, first of all, just taking the step to face them should give you a little confidence that you can do that, right? And then as you face them, often you find they're not quite as bad as you thought maybe they
Right.
were. And
Right.
it gives you confidence. So I think kids, we were talking about this earlier, especially, it's just such a good way to grow reading about characters in situations that, are pretty out there.
Yeah.
But you're identifying with the main character and you're watching them face these fears and triumphing in so many ways. And I think that gives kids confidence, even though they're not right there in the spooky, scary house with the ghost.
Right. Right. And I think it gives kids a thought that, okay, I could approach this and choose how I face my fear because they're not going to be locked in and tormented in a way that they think there are rats all over them when they're terrified of rats or whatever it
Right.
might be. And so it gives them a way to decide how they're
Yeah.
going to face their fear.
Yes.
Because let me tell you, I sure as heck do not want anybody to shove a snake in my face. That's
Ah,
not how I want to face my fear of snakes. Actually, I never
sure.
want to deal with that. I do not feel a need to conquer that fear. But I like the thought of being empowered and choosing to
Yes.
approach your fears.
Yes.
Um,
And definitely reading a book is a safe way to face a fear.
right?
Yeah,
Yes.
you're in your own home or wherever.
Right? That you can do that. You can be scared in a comfortable way. And that
Yes.
that is so great. All right, so let's talk about fear of change. So when the character, she has to move, Avery has to move, and then also they're growing up and they're changing at different rates, which is
Yes.
it's hard to
Yes.
mature or not mature and see your friends doing it at a different pace. And I think that's a
Yes.
big thing for kids. So, what are your thoughts on middle schoolers and change or fear of change?
Yeah, that is one reason I wrote this book, was because I moved when I was 13 years old, between seventh and eighth grade, which is a really challenging time to move. And I moved 2 states away. I moved from Iowa to Ohio. And when I went back the following summer, much like Avery, I didn't have exactly the same situation. And luckily, I had made some friends in the new place. But it was shocking to me how much everybody had changed in one year, my friends. And at that age, of course, not only are you changing emotionally, but obviously physically. And some people were 6 inches taller, and some people were exactly the same. And some boys were starting to get scruff, and
Right?
it
And
was
changing
just,
voices and
yeah, it was just so shocking to me. And I think that's a really challenging age because there are so many changes going on. And so to write a book like this, I thought, she's facing fears. They all have their own little fears that they have to face in the book, all four of the main characters. And it's just such a universal thing. And I think kids, whether they move away or not, they see people changing. They are changing. They're not sure if they like it. Sometimes they like some things, sometimes they don't like others, but it's inevitable and it's happening. And I just think it's an interesting thing to explore for kids.
yes, because even if you don't move, you're
Yeah.
going to go through changes,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
And
You might be interested in something totally new that your friend is not,
right,
or vice versa. And it can be very unsettling.
right.
But life is full of changes and you do have to learn to roll with it.
Yeah. I love the theme in the book, and I love that the main character has to deal with it, and she feels like she's the only one
Yeah.
dealing with it. But it turns out everybody has to deal with this, and
Yes.
they react to it differently. And
Yes.
so I think that makes other kids feel okay. I'm okay dealing with this. Everybody's going through this, even if they're
Yes.
not saying it, even if they're not going to say it out loud. I can know that everybody's
Yes.
going it.
Absolutely. Hmm.
How do you feel that moving affects kids? Because you went through it yourself, and I never went through it myself as a child, but my
Hmm.
my son, exact same time, between seventh and eighth grade.
Yeah.
And my kids have had to move across the country multiple times. And so how do you think that affects a kid?
Well, the one thing, how it affected me, it kind of changed my identity in a lot of ways because suddenly I wasn't from this home that I'd been from my whole life. And I was in a new house and I had a whole new school and everything. So, you can, they always talk about when you move, you could change your identity and stuff. And I don't know if a lot of kids really do that or anything, but it definitely changes who you are just because you are living in a different space. Okay,
Because
what
friends
was,
affect you, school affects you,
yeah,
the day-to-day life, so many things affect you. Your family, they'll continue to have some impact on you, but the way
yes,
that they respond to the new
yes,
affects you.
yes. And especially at the age when middle schoolers are, the family's becoming less influential, maybe, or important in their life. Peers are so important and influential. And to leave one set and have to make a whole new
Right.
group of friends can be very, very challenging.
And a big fear there, will I be accepted by the new group?
Absolutely.
How do I find the right group? That's scary. How
Yeah.
do I find the ones that I'm going to be like and happy with? And will they even love
Yes.
me?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So it's unsettling. It's just a challenging time in life to move.
Right, right.
But if the one thing I could tell kids is if try to think of it as an adventure, if nothing else. And the great thing about today, when I was a kid, we didn't have email or cell phones. We
Right.
didn't stay in touch as easily with old friends, but it's much easier now to stay in touch.
Yes. And to
Yeah,
keep those connections going, and
absolutely.
definitely. And now they can help
Yeah.
transition you through it. And
Yes.
that can make a very big difference for sure.
Hmm.
So we talked briefly about titles. I would love to hear, did you come up with the title before the book? Because titles are so big in yours, Field of Screams and Stage Fright, and they have like this double meaning, right?
Yeah.
So when
Yes.
did title come in?
Well, totally different for both of them. My
Okay.
first book, Field of Screams, I just called Ghost Farm for years,
Oh,
just
okay.
as a placeholder. I
Oh,
knew it was a
placeholder.
terrible title, but
Right. But
I
it
couldn't
needed to
think
be
of
called
anything.
something.
Yeah, I couldn't think of anything good. And then for a while, I called it Under the Willow.
Okay.
But when I got my book deal, my editor said to me, "Listen, we need something short and punchy that will, from the title, the kid will know exactly what they're getting into."
Yes.
And her boss actually thought of Field of Screams. And I was just at a middle school in Kansas last week talking about this title. And I said to the kids, have you ever heard of the movie Field of Dreams?
Right.
And a lot of them had. I was
Right.
surprised because
Even
that's
if
a
they couldn't
30-year-old
say what
movie.
it's about, they've probably
Right.
heard that phrase.
Yes.
Yes.
And the whole point of Field of Dreams, or a big part of it, is that it takes place in Iowa.
Right.
So when you hear Field of Screams, you think immediately rural
Right.
Iowa, and screams, you think scary. So
Scary.
you know not only the place, but the genre pretty fast.
Yes.
So yeah, I was happy with that.
Perfect.
Stage Fright, I had kind of come up with just the idea. I hadn't even written it yet. And I was sitting around, I was actually visiting my mother and my stepfather.
Right.
And I was like, let's just brainstorm. And we came up with Stage Fright before I had even written the book, really.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So,
You knew that it had to have something to do with theater somehow, right? If you were going to
well,
say
yeah,
stage fright.
I had the plot kind of figured out. I just
Okay.
hadn't written it yet.
Okay.
So I was looking for, you know, the same kind of thing. I thought short and sweet, and I do like that you know what you're getting into. It's going to be about theater, and it obviously it has two meanings, but fright, along with the cover, it's going to be scary.
It's
So
creepy. Yes.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
Perfect.
So titles are a lot of fun, I think.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
And I think that exactly what you said. The punchline,
yeah,
it's short and gets to the point that you know
yeah,
what you're getting into. I can look at the cover and read the
yeah,
title
yeah.
and I feel like this is so perfect because it takes place in the summer. And so it's a perfect time to read it in the summer as we're coming up on summer reads and what we're going to read for the summer.
Yes,
And it also, it's just people like to be scared. They like to sit
yeah,
around campfires and be scared in the summer. There are just a few
absolutely.
times of year that are perfect for it. And so this is
Yes,
definitely one to recommend for kids as you're getting ready, creating these reading lists and suggestions for summer reads.
yes.
And they're a spooky one and pick up
And
a few pairs.
sleepovers, you tell ghost stories all the time. And kids, yeah, on campouts, whether they're at camp or whether they're with their family, I mean, ghost stories are a lot of fun in the summer. So,
And
yeah,
yours could be shortened to like after they read the book, they could take it and tell it as a shortened version ghost story. That would be
true.
fun.
Yes.
Scare somebody else. Make sure to bring a
Yeah,
skull in your bag and pull it out and set it by somebody when they're not looking.
exactly.
Have a
Exactly.
friend get involved in this.
Oh, yeah. You could do all sorts of pranks. Who knows?
Right, right. Oh man.
Yeah.
That's so perfect. That going back to our snake bit, I was a cashier in at a grocery store in college, and I'm just, talking to the person, ringing up the groceries, and I didn't, I wasn't looking at what I was grabbing. I would just grab, and then I grab it, almost grabbed it, a candy snake actually, but it was a full length candy snake.
Oh,
And I was just like, oh, the
that's so
customer got
funny.
the biggest kick out of it because she was going to use it to prank her husband. And
Aha.
so, yes, finding
Very
these
good.
little scary in a safe way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
So it's perfect.
Speaking of summer as a great time to read a scary book, I do have some news that is probably out now when this comes out. Stage Fright was chosen by Walmart to be one of their 2025 summer reads books, which means it will be in Walmarts across the country. I think they're going to have special displays for their summer reads books. And, they usually just have kind of top of mind books
Right,
that, J.K. Rowling books, Harry Potter, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, stuff like
right.
that. But in the summer, they expand a little bit and have a list for kids to read. I think they partner with libraries as well.
Oh,
So
that's
I'm
great.
very, very happy that Stage Fright was chosen because it can get to a lot of kids all over the country, especially in rural areas that don't
Yes.
necessarily have bookstores. So
Making it more readily available. I
yes,
love
yes,
that because
yeah,
sometimes it can be hard to
yes.
figure out and have a selection when you're trying to go and look at, okay, I need ideas, something else for my kid.
Hmm.
And I think spooky books really appeal to the reluctant reader too, because
Yes.
reluctant readers, they reading maybe isn't cool, but my mom wants me to read a book over the summer since I'm not in school.
Yeah.
How perfect to just, while you're at Walmart, pick it up and grab your kid a spooky book.
Yes, and I think the other thing is boys who are reluctant readers love scary books because
Yes,
it's something they can, it's kind of cool to be scared or to try
right.
to act brave or whatever else. So I
Exactly.
found that I have quite a group of boy fans out there, which I love.
Yes, which is perfect. And that
Mhm.
even though the main character is a girl, there are
Yeah.
two big supporting characters that are boys.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think it's become less of a thing that it's like,
For
oh,
sure.
I only read characters about boys anymore, right?
Yeah.
'Cause I'm a boy.
Yeah.
That's not as much as a thing as it was when I was a kid.
Thank goodness.
Yes, right, right.
Yeah.
And so that's so cool that
Yeah.
the guys are picking it up and it's
Yes.
something that people can talk about and connect to. Love
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
So, Wendy, talking about what we were reading when we were kids, what was one of your favorite books to read when you were a kid? Or one of your favorite children's books now? Actually, I'm not going to put a caveat on that. What is one of your favorite books that is a
Okay.
children's book?
Again, I was just in Kansas talking to kids, and they asked me the same thing about when I was growing up. And I loved Tuck Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt when
Yes,
I
did you know it's
was,
coming out as a graphic novel soon here?
no,
Yes, they've just got a graphic novel version coming out.
I'm so excited
Next
about
few
that.
months. I don't remember the release date.
I know it was a musical too.
Yes, my
Yeah.
nephew was in it, and that was how we discovered that he sings.
Ah,
And I love that this is like it exposes kids to
yeah.
literature in so many ways when they take
Yes.
literacy-based musicals.
Yes. Yes. I mentioned Tuck Everlasting, and these kids that I was just talking to last week, they had just read the book.
Oh,
So
cool. So
I'm
you
so
can,
glad it's still around because it's great.
yeah.
A more current book that I really love. So when I was growing up, they had those In Search of movies. I
Oh,
don't know if you remember
I don't
those.
remember that. Tell me about it.
Okay. Well, they had like Leonard Nimoy did who played Spock on
Right.
original
Yes.
Star Trek, did the voiceovers. And these were actually in movie theaters in the 70s. And it was
Okay.
like Search of Bigfoot,
Cool.
In Search of aliens,
Okay.
In Search of the Ark of the Covenant, all that. So I love those kind of stories. And there's a book that came out last summer by Allie Russell called It Came from the Trees.
Oh, I read that. That was a good spooky
Wasn't it
summer
good?
read. Yes, add that
Yes.
with your stage fright, and it came from the trees. Get
It
those
came from the
on our list.
trees, and they're camping, there are Girl Scouts, and Bigfoot's involved. And it's
Yes.
cool. It's a good one. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
Because it's gonna make you like be creeped out when you go camping. Yes.
Exactly.
But not
Exactly.
too much that you can't go camping.
No, no,
Like
no.
it's
Right.
again, it's just perfect. The middle grade
Yes.
spooky is wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's so fun. Well, I've loved having you on and talking to you about spooky reads, and we will look forward to what is next. Do you have more spooky books coming out, or what can we look forward to next?
Well, I currently have a proposal into my editor.
Yay.
Waiting to hear what she thinks. I'll give you a little bit of a teaser.
Okay.
Both of my books have taken place in the summer.
Yes.
So now I'm doing a Dead of Winter book.
Oh, nice.
And it's that kind of strange week right before New Year's.
Hmm.
And a family is on a family trip on frozen Lake Michigan in Michigan. So, and it's a blended family
Still spooky stuff though,
and
right?
still spooky.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, it's blended family. So they're stepbrothers and stepsisters. And
Right.
yeah, so they don't know each other that well yet.
Right.
And
Some uncertainty going on there.
yeah, we'll see. Hopefully.
Oh,
Knock on
okay.
wood.
Well, we're hoping. Fingers
Yeah,
crossed that that comes through. That sounds cool. Because really, those are the times that I think of for
yeah,
spooky books
yeah,
are around Halloween
yeah,
and in the summer
yeah.
and then in like Christmas. I don't know why, but
Well,
because it's
A
snowy and
Christmas
cold, there's
Carol's a
like a song that says, is that what you're thinking, the song?
yeah. Well, and A Christmas Carol is,
Yes, it is. That's right.
classic
Ghost
ghost
story.
story.
That's
Yep.
right. Right.
So,
There'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the
yes,
Whitleys. Yes.
yes, love it. Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
we'll see.
Mm,
And it's dark more. It's dark all day practically in the winter.
yeah. So it's just, it's snowing and you're gonna cozy up and why not
Yeah.
read a spooky book? I mean, spooky's
Yeah.
great all year round, but those are
Yes,
definitely the times of year for it.
exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Wendy. It's been great chatting with you.
Thank you for having me, Karen.
I hope that you enjoyed hearing about stage fright, and I hope that you find the book at Walmart and buy it or from some other indie bookstore. And I hope you love reading it this summer. If you enjoy my podcast Book Huddle, I would love for you to take a minute and rate and review it on your podcast platform. This will help more people find Book Huddle. Now go and have a fantastic week reading some amazing books.